I think there are facts about moving on the trees that make sense that we are so close to the apes.
Yeah.
Like in the moment you put your feet on a round branch, it makes sense, it stick all around the friction and it helps you. And then there are your toes trying to grasp the surface and getting all this information. For me, it was like, wow, okay, all of this is there. And then you hang and you have, this special rotation in the shoulder. And there were things about the tree that I felt it was, the playground and also this peaceful space.
Hey guys, before we get to this week's episode, I wanted to let you know about an exciting development at Evolve Move Play. So we are bringing back our 2-day traveling workshops. So that means one of our workshops might be coming out to a city near you, or potentially you could reach out to us and bring us to a city near you. We did this for years. When I started Evolve Move Play, I taught traveling workshops all over the world from 2013 to 2019. But after the birth of my youngest daughter, I needed to stay home more with my wife and my 3 kids. And so we stopped those. But now we have a really amazing staff of teachers who've come up with me through the retreats of the last few years. And I myself have a little bit more freedom to travel. So we've got 4 upcoming dates here in the States and 2 dates in Europe coming up where you can come and train with us for just 2 days. That means it's going to be a lot easier entry point as far as cost and logistics for you to come and join us. So check out what's going on with our 2-day workshops in the link down below. And we look forward to seeing you in a city near you.
Victor, it's very nice to meet you. Welcome on the Evolve and Play podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Rev.
So I encountered your stuff quite recently. I think I saw you first on Leo Urban's channel, and I was quite intrigued by the way that you moved and kind of what you're doing. So I've been digging into your background, and seems like you've been pretty new to the social media, online media world.
Less than a year.
Huh?
Less than a year, I said.
Less than a year. Your YouTube channel's about a year old, Instagram, but it seems like you've been pursuing this kind of natural animal movements for quite a long time. So yeah, people who are not familiar with you, you have a channel called Tarzan Movement, and you showcase lots of movement in trees, lots of kind of animal-inspired movements, conditioning exercises that you use with people who are training with you. And you have a kind of a training group in Spain.
We used to have that at the first year, but it turned out that is the how do you say, like, is when you train one-to-one every day to people who don't have like a base, it's kind of hard to deliver full potential of what you can actually share with them. So it's to build that base from somebody who live in the city. I have been there forever, yes, and all how to address all of this. So it's difficult in a group with many people have only very weak base of movement or no background at all.
Yeah.
So I realized that that's not the best way for me. And then if we go around and train some people that can help better these people, then much more interesting for them.
So hopefully the internet will be stable for us. You were just telling me a little bit about how you were teaching in Spain. Were you in Barcelona?
Or we're in Barcelona.
Okay, so you're in Barcelona, and you had a training group there, and then you were doing one-on-ones where you felt like it wasn't quite able to deliver enough content to the students. Is that the right way to describe what's happening?
No, it's more like it wasn't one-on-one, but I wanted to have this attention for everyone, but it was more like a group.
Yeah.
And then you see, it's kind of hard to give this kind of attention in a group, and then regarding everyone's difference, and when you have to address like certain points, because everyone have different background and different illness or some problems from the past, and they have to be addressed individual. But then that's not possible. Like for me, I didn't feel like right to spend hours and hours repeating the same, I felt like it would be better if people come already with some background of movement.
Yeah.
So then it's easy for them to pick up the subtle things of the movement and the proposal that I'm delivering, you know?
Yeah. So is that why you've moved to teaching intensives now?
That's where I moved to teaching intensive. That's also like back then we were in a city. So it was kind of not the right feeling to be in a park in a city, and then at the same time doing these things and, wanting to be more connected with nature spaces, no? Like, I mean, social spaces, or at least like this place, it is a farm, but it's in the middle of nowhere. So it makes sense still, but then in the city is like, no.
Yeah, I've experienced the same things. We taught weekly classes in Seattle for 8 years. 7 or 8 years, weekly classes in Seattle. And it was difficult because there's so much breadth that you want to bring to the students. And, we only had 90 minutes for the students once a week. So it's not so much to cover something deep. And then, we've taught primarily through our 2-day workshops, traveling workshops, primarily taught in city parks. So they're probably getting back to that here soon. But there's something where, it's really at its best when we can take people into the deep nature. So it is nice to show them how nature can show up for them, even in the city.
Yeah.
So tell me about your background. So you've been teaching this stuff through kind of weekly classes, group classes, and then now you've moved into intensives. Were you teaching movement for a long time before starting your thing in Barcelona? Did you have a fitness training background? How did you come to get into this business?
Actually, not at all. Like, I'm just a simple fellow who was always wondering about how to find his own place in Earth and how to deal with society, and just keep this kind of curiosity for nature and this link that was always there with my own body, what we call now body and mind, but just to keep that connected and not to start to, walk around this concept of fragmented parts.
Yeah.
So for me, as I grow up in Cuba, and in the countryside, these games are kind of day by day things, something that you do as a child. You go and pick up fruits, these kind of things. So tree wasn't like strange for me.
Yeah.
Neither highs or moving in different ways, because you have to adapt to the tree itself. But I believe that this alone, it only counts for, as a child, develop some kind of relationship. But I think the hardest time for every human comes when they have to face society, friends, family, opinions and conclusion, and the general way of doing things. That's where you really have to face the challenge of not losing this child connection in all sense, like not just physically speaking for what you are doing, but also, it's this challenge of trying to figure out how to not get them or all these new concepts breaks through your innocence or breaks through your feelings, because at the time nothing makes sense. Nothing at all makes sense. It's all this mess up. And I believe this is kind of the experience of every human being at some point, maybe teenagers or even before. And what happened to me, the turning point, is that instead of trying to fit in the society, I was always kind of a rebel, I must say.
Yeah.
But not in that my rebellion was more like I wanted to just go out and find my own space. And I did so only on trees, because I figured that once you go up, and this is kind of funny, but It's like that. Once you go up on a tree and just stay quiet, because nowadays nobody look really to trees in their daily life.
Yeah.
But they don't realize you are there in the first place. Not even the dogs. So it's like you're kind of protected by this invisibility thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there I start to move naturally. Like, you are in one place, but that's it. You want to score the tree, and every tree teaches something different, or you learn something about yourself. And this was the process. This is my background. There is nothing else really specific. Maybe I did some martial art when I was perhaps 8 to 10 at the young age at the school. Some kung fu background.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it does count. It does count for some flexibility and some of the positions, deep squat and these kind of things.
Yeah.
Some acrobatics, it does count a lot. But then again, not even I was really appreciating this martial art at that time, because I was kind of fighting the society. So I don't want to anyone at that time go aggressively on me. And there wasn't that kind of approach to martial art, like we can play and hit each other and everything's okay. Back then everything was confused for me. So yeah, man, this is like for real my background. I always like to dance. Like, I mean, it's something in Cuba integrated in the culture.
Yeah.
So it was always something for me. I just started to dance in the trees. This is my background, Dancing in the trees is pretty much how it looks like.
So you were doing a lot of tree climbing just as a rural kid growing up in Cuba. And
Yeah.
Some period when you're trying to adjust to society and it's not working very well for you. And you find some kind of solace, some kind of peace through going to the trees again. And then through going to the trees, you start to discover that there's movement there, that there's something, it's not just being there, there's some interesting things that you can do that are meaningful and attractive to you. Is that kind of the story?
Yeah, and not only regarding to movement, but all sort of, not physical movement, but all sort of movement. I mean, the fact of being just alone there means you are kind of isolating yourself, and that's already something hard for people nowadays. Isolate themselves means they feel lonely, and they do not have a relationship with loneliness or being alone. And so I think this was rather easy for me, something I was looking for, to have this, not a voice talking to me all the time, or even my own voice expressing something from the past or whatever idea. And then, yeah, I think there are facts about moving on the trees that make ourselves so close, makes sense that we are so close to the apes.
Yeah.
Like, in the moment you put your feet on a round branch, and you have this arch on your foot, it makes sense, it stick all around the friction, and it help you. And then there are your toes trying to grasp the surface and getting all this information, which you can feel and then act accordingly. So for me, it was like, wow, okay, all of this is there. And then you hang and you have, this special rotation in the shoulder, and you see all the animals, and there's not like a dog can do this. It's not a chance. So there were things about the tree that I felt it was, the playground, and also this peaceful space.
So when did you re-enter the trees? Like, at what stage of your life? Were you still in Cuba, or had you moved to Spain?
Well, I actually moved to Spain.
Okay.
When I was, let's say, 18 years old.
Okay.
But then, for a period of my life, I tried to adjust to society. Like, it lasts 3 months, and then I dropped the school again. And I figured out that I wanted to go to a different place. So I went to England, to this school where they have like massive grove on the backyard, full of these ancient trees. And there again, I met this peaceful place and they were redwood trees and, very oak trees, like 500 years old oaks.
Yeah.
That was like heaven.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's it. That's all I need. That was the.
I'm actually going back to Europe this June for the first time since 2019 or 2018, and I'm really excited to encounter the big oaks and the big beech trees again. I'm excited about that. So how old are you now?
I'm 33.
You're 33. So something like 15 years ago, you're re-entering the trees.
Yeah, somewhere around my 21st, 22 years old.
Okay.
It's not even really not exactly, but yeah, around that.
And when you're doing that, is it just kind of a totally solo trip, or are you finding other people are doing this? Are you aware of parkour as it's starting to develop? Are you aware of any of the other things around, or is it just the attraction of the trees and you exploring and figuring yourself out up there?
Well, it was just exploring. I didn't know even this parkour, not even as a word, that isolated I was. Like I was saying, I did reject society in all manners. I wanted to find the most simple things and from there on build up, because I was overwhelming with the war itself. And starting from the trees, and then because it was in a school, I was volunteer. I have a lot of free time, but there were students.
Mm-hmm.
So the student find out that I was climbing trees.
Yeah.
Because they are so alive, and then they were coming, and one of them come with me, and that was interesting. We have a lot of adventures, even going on redwood trees all the way up, move the litter thing up there. What is this? So students first. No, like with the students,
Yes.
start to climb. Like they figure out that I was doing this, and they start to climb with me.
Yeah.
Most of them they went back like to the school staff, because the teachers were against this, all the policy of the school, and it is England, man. So they have a lot of regulation. But this guy was so curious and he didn't care so much, so he kept climbing with me, and we went into redwood trees all the way up when he was just 14 years old or around.
Yeah.
And, we keep up with this friendship, and for him, it's like, amazing time of his life, figuring out the ways of trees. But yes, I started getting there.
So then did you develop a different profession throughout your 20s that you were doing on the side, and then just climbing trees for personal development, or how did that play out?
Oh, I wasn't doing anything related to profession back then. I mean, in terms of tree climbing or movement, I was just volunteering there, like helping in the kitchen, the grounds, because that school offered this space for you to do nothing after your 4 hours of volunteering. And that's what I wanted to do, nothing, to find silence, you see, to find my own space. I was like this almost a year. And then we went to India because some friends from the school, some teachers, and that was the fine excuse to go to India and keep climbing the banyan trees, amazing banyan trees that they have there, some species of ficus, and get the coconut down for breakfast, these kind of things. And I just keep going like this, but just the natural thing that you do. No, I didn't put it together to movement only after pandemic time, when pandemic time finished. I said, okay, maybe I can start my own thing doing movement. I don't want to participate in some other things that I'm not passionate about it.
Yeah.
So I tried to move to Barcelona because I have this memory of a tree there. It is a magnolia.
Okay.
It's tiny. It is a tiny tree. It's not like remarkable big or anything, but somehow it catch my attention years before when I was there. And then we start to call it the school tree. And it's just a lovely tree that is full of branches and is available for everyone. So we start to move there, and eventually it became an attraction for friends, people who resonate, passing by. Hey, what are you doing? Like this kind of things. No, we're just moving here, the culture of moving and finding ourselves, playing, enjoying at the same time. We get to be functional and still healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to join the group. Back then I didn't charge yet.
Okay, so this is just 3 years ago or so, less than 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
That's how it started in Barcelona.
Okay, so just 2 years ago, you're in the trees. How are you making your living in Barcelona at that point?
Well, I started there to help a friend. He have this kind of he's running some mini manufacture of columns and columpios. How do you call this? It's like hammocks in silk. I was just helping my friend to do stuff around. He will help me financially. Sometimes we have to go and do masonry, and that's something I hate. Going to do waiter was out of the question for sure, because I hate it too. And the fact of being waiting for somebody else or for whatever happened, that was terrible. That was like an exchange of time for I don't know what, for future ideas.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that.
Kind of just working odd jobs and just going to play in this tree, and people discover you in the tree.
Yeah, because we figured out, like, I have some friends and they were like they were recycling food, because I was living on the streets in Barcelona. I went there without no money, like without money at all. Like, I mean, I went there and I did my BlaBlaCar, which is an app that allow you to, people pay for your trip or the gas, and you take them. I have this car, but after I arrived, I was on zero. But then I have some friends, and they were recycling food, so it was easy to like kind of survive. I have the car. I sleep in the car and eating by this recycling food from supermarket and all. That was my life back then, for sure. And then free time hanging at the park, moving and making friends and living just the hippie life, I would say.
Yeah.
That's simple, but
that's what I grew up around. So did you start to hear now people reflecting the way that you were moving was similar to parkour or similar to movement culture or some of these other ideas? How did you get the idea to start offering this as a teaching paradigm?
Well, a friend, he was like, there were people resonating with the manners of my move. Like, oh, it looks like you're dancing on the trees, but I didn't want to take it out of the tree. I only have fun on the trees. And so what they see was a monkey, Yeah. You're moving like a monkey. That's what they would say. But we like it. Can you kind of teach us, how do you do that? Like, can you repeat it? I didn't know anything about progressions, about how to teach, how to explain. Even people would not understand my explaining, so I was more like telling them to just imitate, because it's what I do. I imitate whatever I have learned from documentaries, and then whatever I have found by my own movement, the nature of how I should move and adapt to the tree. And then I put it together and I felt like, okay, what I'm seeing in the documentaries actually is what we develop by our own too. And somehow we end up moving on a tree pretty much close to some ape techniques. So it is there for us. We share similar structures in so many ways. So it makes sense that we end up doing some patterns which are similar. And so this friend told me, like, man, instead of going out and doing, odd works and things that you don't want to do, why don't you just, propose your service? And I say, man, I have no idea how to make how to make this professional. Like this is not something I have a study or anything. It's just what I do, how I move. It comes just like that, like natural. And then a friend, but I say, okay, but this, the perspective of this look better than going out every time to find jobs.
Yeah.
So I was try to find out and learn this, how to teach or how to, to make it more easy or accessible to people, how to communicate this better. And yeah, we start this big group around, and there were people coming with some backgrounds, like you say, gymnastics or parkour and things like that. And more than their move itself was what they will, what they will know about these terms were new for me, like progressions. I said, what is progression? Progression seems to me like, I don't know, the progress of the city or something like that. I didn't know the word itself, not even in Spanish. Progression, what is a progression, They explained it to me, it makes sense. Still, I didn't have notion of how to break down the practice, and not even how to look at people and figure out what they need from at that moment. So we just start to play around, play a lot in trees, always barefoot, always, without t-shirt, and just keep playing. But I will start charging slowly some fees, make a group, and they were coming. We were having a lot of fun. They were thankful about this, so we kept going, and I was learning a lot. So that's how. So
Beautiful. So you were inspired as you were kind of figuring out your own movement in the trees by documentaries you watched of primates. Did you see primates in India as well? Like, have you traveled and kind of spent time around monkeys and even other apes?
I mean, in India there were a lot of apes.
Yeah.
So I was good to see them, how they sleep, how they move. But I'm not much of analytic. I don't have this analytic mind. So for me, it was not like breaking down their movement and then write it down, name it, categorize it and fragmentate all this experience. For me, it was like this attention of looking at them like astonishing, because I was like, wow, how they move, how they sleep. Man, I saw these two monkeys with the baby. They come together in a branch, I don't know, 10 meters, 15 meters high. They put the kid in between, they hug each other, and they go sleep. And that was like, no, really? In a branch where you struggle to just walk around. And they was just sleeping there, So those experiences like this, seeing them all the time, 4 legs, which make for me and my practice make much more sense. Like go on 2 legs, especially on high. When I'm high, I feel more grounded, close to the branch, the gravity point. The mobility is better for me because I can use also the upper body there. I can have more information with the 2 arms, or the 2 hands on the trunk. So I get the feeling of the branch. How can this hold me? All of these things make more sense, and they are coming from watching these monkeys, and further on documentaries too. Yeah.
So you've carved your movement style basically from just time in the trees and really paying attention to the way that other primates move in nature.
Pretty much.
One of the things I've been watching your videos, like, yeah, obviously your quadrupedal is really, really highly developed. And you're very comfortable in the trees, but in particular, one of the things that's been really interesting to me is how comfortable you are bending trees towards other trees and grabbing relatively thin looking limbs and pulling yourself into the other tree. We call this like clinging and bridging, right? That's like the primate locomotion sort of language for this. And I've done a bit of this, but that video you did with Leo in the beech forest, like that was
pretty crazy, the heights you guys were at and how thin the branches were that you're pulling in. Have you ever had a branch break on you? Like, how have you figured out what the branch actually allows you?
Well, you see, it all start with I think it all start from the feet, this feeling.
Yeah.
You get it feet. You go on a branch, and I mean, I'm curious about many stuff in general. So and I never fall. I'm sorry?
Never fallen.
I've never fallen in my life from high or anything broke in my body. Because as I said, I was always slow,
Yeah.
slow. I don't come from parkour or these acrobatic things that where you're always in this explosive mode. I'm more like a slow guy. Like in the trees, I move, I dance, try to connect. I'm not trying to do big jumps or big things like that. But they're amazing. I mean, I have to say they're amazing. I love it. That's why we got along with Leo so good. Because I was like, what are you doing there, boy? This is amazing. But so it was. But so it was too. So we tried to combine this knowledge. But Rafi, the thing is, I think we all have this capability of get into our animal part, because it's not that we are either one or the other, not an animal or not a human, and then they are contradictory. But either these are all things on us, like some state of mind that we can inhabit. For me, it makes sense to inhabit this animal mode when I'm on a tree. High or not high, it allows me to have all these sensations from the branch, from the type of tree, and even to look at what branches are, rotten, and because you go slow too. I mean, if you go to this fast, it doesn't make sense. It's like at some point you're gonna mistake, and that's it. 50 meters high, there is no, you can't play like this, explosive at 50 meters high. And there is something else, like if you see a bunch of monkey, they all have their area.
Yeah.
They develop the patterns of movement in specific areas. Usually is the route where they go to eat, and they know specifically every tree and passage, And so there is this previous investigation, not through data, but through feelings. Spending some time on this kind of trees give you a lot of information to your animal.
Yeah.
Not through your arguments and then you break it down. Through your animals. All these feelings are there. It's just like you go up on a tree blind. You close your eyes and you go up on a tree. And you think, oh, how am I going to get down from here? You think on this because you're not seeing where are you going, no? But you are, and you are creating a mental map. And so it is that when you go down, you already know where to put your legs, or you have this kind of imaginary map that you are building up in your way up. So this kind of things happens while we move on trees. So I go on a tree and I start to try to explore it, slowly, gentle. It's just like making a new friend. We go around, this is what you can do. I can do this here. So you move around all the branches, and this is like mapping the tree, like 3D mapping.
Yep.
And then you can play like fast and do all of this, and you get the feeling you already know, but it's not that you have the knowledge, but already your body sense have all these feedbacks of what you can do where. What is the response of this branch, the resistance? Can you bend it or not? The type of tree where you are. All of this is already there. And as it is, you don't need to worry anymore. It's just a matter of feeling it every time. You go there and your body knows what to do, where to put the feet, how much weight. All of this is due to this previous work. And also, there is something about Leo and us that we were able to do this too, because both of us have a built-up relationship with fear in general. right? Leo, I don't even need to talk about him. He climbed all these skyscraped, and all of this is already like, you need that relationship for sure to do all of these free solos. But even on trees, it becomes a little bit even difficult because it's a living thing.
Yeah.
So having this relationship with fear and having these feelings and this connection to your attention create the perfect environment for you then be able to play on trees,
Absolutely.
And that's it. It's not like you have to read biology to figure out tree before you go up.
So you're talking about the idea that your confidence in trees comes from going slow to map a tree out, and that this is something that we also see in primates, which is cool because my wife did her her master's thesis on parkour as a form of adult play. She looked at primate models, and what you'll see is that primates don't just use the same routes over and over again. Like they don't just use the functional routes to their environment. They explore and find ways to jump, climb, and do things in novel ways and then repeat them, just like we do with parkour, because it helps them do exactly what you're talking about. It helps them map the environment out. Theoretically, then, if they're chasing a prey item like a small animal or being chased by a predator or need to access a resource that they didn't see before, they now have it mapped out in the environment and they're able to trust the branches, to trust their capacity to jump this gap. So this is how we start with all of our students as well. We say, like, it's kind of like move like an orangutan before you try to move like a gibbon. It's kind of good. You start slow, you start exploring, you start mapping it. But what I've noticed over the years is that people don't have an intuitive sense of what is safe. And it's also very variable. I've definitely had tree limbs come off on me. There's a type of tree that's native here called a big leaf maple. It's kind of famous for having branches that will just shed. And so it's a beautiful tree, looks really nice. It can grow in really fantastic shapes, but sometimes you don't know it and that branch is just ready to go. I was probably I probably went up about 20 feet in this maple and I was climbing down it. You know how when a limb is sort of slanted down, you could climb down it like a rope. And luckily, it came off when I was about 8 feet off the ground instead of 20 feet off the ground. But it was just boom, the branch came. And so it is possible for these things, even, and I've been climbing trees like you since I was a child. And I've noticed that I have this inherent sort of sense of danger usually around which tree limbs could break. And I've had to train myself to be able to recognize what the signs are so that I can guide other people into recognizing the signs. Because the intuitive sense that you have as somebody who climbed trees all of your childhood, that's not so accessible necessarily to the next generation of people who are coming from the city to climb the trees. Have you thought about that? Have you looked into how do I educate that intuition in the students that I work with?
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of the hard part because you can teach a technique. Right head, they try to imitate this technique and they sometimes go high, even because they have at some point when you are playing in group, you get excited. And as you are excited, you lose the sense of fear because you are not on your own. You feel this hug. And then you try things you will not try by your own.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean, climbing it looks like it's not just about techniques. It's neither one thing or other. There are many things that you need to integrate. I would say that the most important part is to be able to access to this attention to what is happening in real life. And that is like saying, stop whatever you're doing in your mind and be able to see the details of the tree and the ant that is moving around. And, we already know in our daily life that this is kind of hard for most of people because our own habit of being thinking shot after shot, right? So of course you can get into a tree and you are full capability and you are stronger than me, and like many of my students are, and they come, but they are thinking maybe on how they look from outside, you know, or making the most amazing acrobatic thing or jumping further. And then, you know, especially because of this process is going on, they're not able to see other details that they need to see in that moment, you know, to be present and figure that that's not the best thing to do or not in that specific way of being, you know. And that's something that I have learned too, because some of them felt like they don't feel on high, because I don't take people high to train, because I know by myself it takes a lot of personal develop or personal exploration and responsibility to be up there, knowing that whatever happened to you is you're seeing, and take this decision by your own, you know, and not regarding that somebody else is taking care of you. Because at the end of the day, if somebody's falling, I cannot take care of them. It's impossible, you know. And no Superman, I don't fly. So we train in the low level, and if eventually I can see someone can, you know, like Leo, we can do things together, but it's in different terms. It's not my student, I'm not his student. Whatever happened to both of us is just fine, you know. And so it is hard to convey this element, and then even harder to share it. And that's why I stick to share low level branches, my techniques, or whatever I can share with them. And then we go around, and in this is intensive, which is interesting too, is that we are able to share our person, you see, to build up different bridges, different relationship. So it is not like professor-teacher relationship where you trust that everything's gonna be okay, but we learn other things, you know, to be alone, to be in silence, to make, you know, survival things, to learn about trees. We go around in the forest and we gather things, we collect, you know. We don't hunt, but we don't need to do that right now. But I believe it is the combination of many factors that bring about on a human this self-trust and this self-attention that later on reflects on how you move. Depending on the challenge that you have, how do you move? How do you feel? Because you can feel very comfortable at 2 meters, but what about 20? Are you still comfortable, or you are dealing with some process there that have a physiological answer to? You will shake legs when you are so high, with the idea of dying, which is just an idea, but it's also a possibility, a factual possibility, and your body has just react like, you know, you're shaking there, and this is something you have to be able to relate with. That's hard.
Yeah, that's a wonderful aspect of what we do is the relationship to fear, right? It's so easy to not develop a relationship with fear in the modern world, but you're always going to be afraid at some point. And how good is your relationship when you meet that point?
Yeah, exactly.
When you describe your movement in trees, one thing that I get the impression of is it's very much a place where you're able to kind of not think, right? It's a place of where your chattering mind goes away. Do you notice that shift in mentality? And have you done anything to really cultivate the ability to let go of the chattering of your mind, other than just spending time in the trees?
Well, that's the interesting thing for me, is that you use the tree to find out about these things, right? And as every other tool, for a while, it becomes like the excuse to get there, as you said. But I'm deeply interested in this kind of things, and not just in silence or the animal when I get into a tree, it's not too much that no idea, it's not no thought at all, or completely silent, or completely the animal. How to put? I'm getting in a mess now. What I'm trying to say is that I can see how different it is to be in animal mode, to put it in somehow, when you are, high there, facing the imminent death if you fall, with some kind of difficulty there. And I can see that in those specific moments, the main state of being is like this animal mode. Is this perception of everything, but at the same time you are not creating like all this chatting. Okay, this is there, which is different actually of another type of silence that I have been experienced. Like, for example, if I'm hugging some friends, like, or people that I really connect with in some other kind of dimension, not on the intellectual, not on, we don't need to even talk. We touch each other, we hug each other, and there is this sense of we can fall to each other, right? We can rest there, one to each other. And in that resting, in that going deep, I have been experiencing also another type of silence, which is neither the animal or the analytic mind, the chatting mind. So there are like this. You see, this is my area of interest nowadays a lot. Like, what is this? We are able to inhabit different states of being, different dimensions, and they all have kind of very interesting taste and feeling, and they all have kind of functionality also in our life. And you see, if I'm speaking with you, I don't want to be in this animal mode right now. I'm kind of concentrating when I'm speaking.
Yeah.
I'm kind of regarding the phone, thinking about this communication, using all these amazing skills from humans have cultivated for so long. But then when I'm on the tree, I don't want to be talking to people, I don't want to be as relaxed as in a hug,
No, I know.
So
It's a very funny thing. So many people have seen me speak a lot, right? So they want to come and meet me and train with me. And then when they are with me, they want to talk to me. But if we're in the trees, I don't want to talk, right? Let's see a little bit of talk, right? Like only the talk that fills the time between when my body's ready for the next effort. But if they get excited about the subject of the talk, then they'll be holding on to me when I'm ready to jump again. And it's very frustrating, actually. It's like, all right, like I need to move in the tree. I'm here for the tree. Like you can be with me and we're in the tree together, but don't make me sideline the tree, because that's what I'm mostly here for.
yeah, it's different when you play or when you teach,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like, I teach them, and then I say, okay, class dismissed, let's play now. They understand that completely. I have no more this role, so let's just play.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's I definitely can show up as the coach when that's the appropriate role, but when I'm showing up to play, it's a different thing. Get peevish if people ask too much of me. That takes me away from the play. You talk in the documentary about the sense that you have, that people are very disconnected in our culture, and that really rang for me because that's basically at the heart of my work right now, which is this idea that fundamentally we experience a loss of meaning in life because we're disconnected from the things that give meaning to life, and that the way that we move, the integration of different aspects of the self, and the integration with nature are major components of that. So can you talk about how you came to think about that sense of disconnection and the role of taking people into nature and into movement in redeveloping connection for you?
Yeah. Well, there is I would put it in a different way, you see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that we are disconnected completely, like, and therefore we need to reconnect. What I experience on myself is like everything is just there. The problem is there is this fight between what to be in every moment, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like because of our society is based on a sense of time, a temporal line, you know, a sense of planning ahead and remembering the most that we can from the past. Our entire culture is based on this timeline. So it makes us to engage in so many processes during the day. We are thinking ahead all the time, or rather coming back to our database, to call it some, or library, you know. It's really make a person so busy all around the day. And then, I mean, if you do anything for so long, like most of your day, it becomes a habit, you know? And a habit is something which is difficult to address when it have become an automatic process. And seeing, and so I can see how myself and many of the other humans, we have this habit of thinking just for the just for just for thinking, you know. So thinking has become a habit for whatever purpose, even without a purpose, just just as an automatic thing to do. And so when you are thinking the whole day, what is the space to do, to feel and experience something else? It becomes such a difficult thing just to find a gap between one thought and the next.
Yeah.
For you to experience life from a different perspective, from a different dimension of what you potentially can be, you know? So what does the thing if a human being start to connect back to having this little space, at least, is start to meet a different reality, a different perception of the reality, you know? So NFT, and therefore there are like so many methods out there just for you to try and get these little seconds of gaps where you can experience life from a different perspective, or the drugs were direct links to get there, no? Where you definitely shut up these boys and, as you say, but you see, this create another conflict because we are the boys as much as we are the animal and all the other possibilities. So if I create on my own a fight to the chatting bot, oop, yeah, we have 10%. I have to charge again, and maybe we can carry on. But so Rafi, I was saying that as we have become so much of this a human that is always chatting, for some sick, like finding out things, analyzing things, comparing things, you know, trying to figure out in advance. There is not space for something else to flourish, you know, but it's just there. And nowadays there is all these methods to go around and to make you feel that you have some kind of possibility to reach there, you know.
Yeah.
But then you be dependent on this method, right? So this is another disadvantage of the method itself. A method make you, it's like go, is, you know, then you need the method to get there every time, and you can't do it without the method. And probably the method would take you some 5 minutes or some 1 hour to just be able to then have this little gap, you know. But this is one thing. And the other thing is the fight that, as a consequence of this, you are fighting yourself. You know, you see yourself as a problem, and then you see yourself as a saber, and as a fighter. So you create all this mess on your own conscious. Now you are fighting yourself to shut up yourself. This is, you know, if you take two stones and rubber them together, they create friction and heat, right? Which translates for us into headache and more misunderstanding. And so all this fight within us create more of a struggle, anxiety, more of headache, more, you know. So I don't want to fight myself. And I don't want to, like, I recognize that all of these things, all of these capabilities that we have, they all have their own place.
Mhm.
And what I recognize that we need to find that right balance,
Yeah.
but then work out properly.
The goal is the effective integration of the self, right? It's not that the thinking mind is bad and the animal mind is good. It's that they need to be properly balanced and relating well to each other, dancing in harmony. There's when I say that we're disconnected, obviously we can think of connection as sort of existing on a spectrum. But an example that you gave in the documentary about your approach, and is one that I give as well, which is like when someone looks at a tree, what do they see? Like you said, maybe they categorize it, but I think for most people, they don't even have categories. They just have tree. It's just a wall of green, right? They don't know that it's an oak tree or a banyan tree or whatever it is, because those categories don't have any perceptual relevance to the average person. It's just a green thing in a park.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a biologist or you're interested in biology, maybe you have a perceptual category. It's a banyan tree. Maybe it's invasive or it's native. But when you become a tree climber, you see the potential to move in it, and that creates a different emotional resonance and sense of connection with the tree. And if you maybe are a birder or a forager or a bushcrafter, then you see the potential for what kind of animals live in that. How does it interact with the local ecology? What kind of fibers can you take off of it? What kind of wood does it provide? How does it work for fire making? And all of those literally map into a deeper sense of meaning, and they pull you into awareness of the tree. If you look at a tree and you just try to concentrate on it, just say, okay, I'm looking at this tree. I'm going to look at this tree and see this tree and not anything else for a long period of time. It's very hard. But if you see aspects of the tree that can shift your attention around the different aspects of the tree, it can absorb you very easily. And that deepens the sense of connection that you have.
Yeah.
I've been training a lot of my training over the winter, actually in an indoor facility called Light Force Ninja. There's a few reasons. This is the first time I've done that in like a decade, but it's the few reasons why I've done it. One, it's because it's easy for me to be there with my kids, and then my kids have a great time and I have a good time, and even my wife does. The other is because I had some injuries and some illness that made actually just the fact of it being cold outside much harder for me to deal with this last winter. But I'm just starting to really take my practice back into nature. And so there's this beautiful creek by my house that has these wonderful sandstone boulders that you can run across, right? Some small boulders, some big boulders. And so I went out there and I did my first run down the creek of the year recently with some friends. And it was interesting to compare that experience to being in the gym, because in the gym, the ground is flat and I know exactly what everything looks like, and it has very little perceptual demand on me, aside from the central elements that I'm working with. And so I'm working at a very high level of performance in specific motor patterns and muscular output, but actually the perceptual demand is relatively low. So I went back into this environment where every rock is a different shape, light is hitting it differently, the moss is wet in different degrees of wet. And I could really feel how it pulled me into this different mental state to be in that environment, because not just the physical demands, but the perceptual demands of what I was doing was so much higher. This is one of the things that I think is really magical about moving in trees as well, is that your perceptual system is working so much harder, and inherently that's going to inhibit the talking mind. The narrative mind can't spend as much time. It can't demand as many of your resources, because you have to be able to actually perceive the environment.
Well, I see your point.
Yeah.
Although, Rafi, I think we are able to actually get to a different, you see, so we have this litter by this separate state of being, and we have this fight, and then we have also like the consequence of this fight, and then you have this, we have some kind of feelings that say, okay, maybe here the best is just to be the animal,
Mm-hmm.
But what really intrigued me more is that sometimes, when I'm really, like, sometimes I go and it's not one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but rather the, it's like, it's the energy of being everything at the same time is there. So there is no fight. There is no specific one animal, but they all there. Like all of these parts are there playing the role. And then it's just fine to think when I need to think, to not fear if I need the animal. It's just about the balance. But this is my feeling. You see, this is my experience. But I I feel like moving more and more through to this, you see, to not get along with one specific things at all, but looking for the integration of all these elements and the right balance of this, which is built on awareness. And that's the kind of a difficult thing when we try to address this, like directly, I want awareness so I'll be able to do all of the others. No, something will come in time if all the little parts are playing and the right balance is there.
Yeah.
So there's no more need to just fight for to be in one state of mind, That's my experience is now.
Yeah. I've had this experience in, particularly that calls to mind the experience of doing martial arts for me, sparring. When I'm sparring at a really high level, I experience that my conscious narrative self feels like it's surfing on top of the wave of my body. And it's feeding information back. It's noticing, it's being able to sort of name the patterns that I'm seeing in my opponents and what they're doing, and then feed it to the underlying system. And so there's a time when you're sparring or when you're doing parkour, we can really feel that there's a kind of catch that the narrative mind is sort of trying to take over and hold and do the things that it's not actually that good at. And then there's a way in which you can sink past it and you're just moving, and the movement is arising through you without trying to control it. But then there's this next layer, which is like the movement is arising through you, and the narrative mind is giving the body space to do what it needs. But then it starts to dance well with it. It starts to play well. It starts to feed information to the body in a way that it has that aspect of a well coordinated dance. And that's a wonderful feeling to me.
Yeah. And then it stops the fighting of yourself trying to control. Okay, no now, don't talk now, don't talk now.
Yeah,
let it talk. As long as it is familiar and well feeling and well, like it feels just right. I think that's ultimately what for me looks like to do everything actually.
Yeah. I think that through these physical practices, we have the capacity to better integrate the aspects of the self, right? Aristotle famously talked about the self as being composed of a monster, a lion, and a man. And the monster is something like the underlying innate drives. And the lion is like our social conditioning. And then the man is that rational, forward-thinking part of you. And the well-developed self is the person who's actually integrated all those things. So,
I see.
Man can train the lion to tame the monster, but I think that that's not necessarily the right way to look at it, because it places the man at the top of the hierarchy.
Till the fight is still there, you see.
Yeah, they're co-equal.
That's all we know, man. That's all we know from all times. Fighting.
Yeah. So Victor, I know that your phone's about to die, and I think we'll have to start. We'll have to have another conversation in the future. Hopefully, we'll meet in person. I know you're coming up to the West Coast. I don't know if you're going to make it as far north as I am, but hopefully you can do that. Or maybe when I'm in Europe in June, we can meet up somewhere. But for now, I think we can kind of come to a close here. But I'd love to just
say, what are you doing? Where can people find you? How can people get involved with what you're up to?
Oh, okay. So, well, you see, we have this Instagram social media page
Mhm.
that they can find, and it's called Tarzan Movement.
Mhm.
And another story, we can talk Sundays.
Yeah.
And then we start just like a couple of months a YouTube channel. It is called in the same way, Tarzan Movement. So we are bouncing between them information, some longer shots and some shorts just for Instagram and to keep going. And then the feeding the information what we're doing and when and how,
Beautiful.
Yes.
That's
So
how
work.
people find you. Yeah. Someday I want to have you and me, and Leo, and Vance Pubel from Brazil all get together in the trees, and we can make a video called "Will the real Tarzan please stand up?"
I don't know this guy the last one you mentioned, but
Vance.
it would be
He's called Bacon Man on Instagram. Look him up. He's another really amazing tree mover.
all right. If you said it, it would be easier.
Lots of people have been called the real Tarzan in the movement community. So who's the real?
That's good. That's good. There should be at least one for every country.
Every country. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a real pleasure to speak with you, Victor, and I wish you luck on the rest of your intensive. I hope you guys have an awesome time and enjoy Nicaragua.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Bye.
I also enjoy. Bye bye.